Okay, someone asked me about, on this here board, something about the space between these pins. It's not the space between these pins that is important. What is important is being able to draft out the pattern for what I'm making the board for. I went over these lines with pen so you'd be able to see them better, because when I first did this I drafted it out with pencil, spray mounted it to the board, and then put the pins in. In order for this to be super accurate, and unfortunately this is as accurate as I could get, but in order for it to be as accurate as possible, you have to take like a drill press and drill in a pilot hole at the apex of the triangle on the top and the bottom before you put the pin in. The pin in this case, I believe I use like a 16 penny nail. If you drill the pilot hole and put it straight in, then you can trim it off with like a pair of bolt cutters. But you also have to be able to cut an accurate strip. In this case I had set it up to cut a 2 3/4 inch strip with my glass cutter, which is this. You can see this okay? And the theory for that is, and also in order to hold the glass in place, you can see I have these little pins. This is a little pin here, right, which is actually like a 20 gauge nail or less. 21, 18 something, not an 18, it'd be like a 20 gauge nail. A little bit, just a step up from like a straight pin, just about. Those are permanent, they stay in to keep the strip in place, the downward pressure of cutting the glass. And the reason you use a 16 penny nail is because when you use a straight edge, top and bottom, see, this is theoretically, so we get a bit better shot this way, right on that line. Okay? It's fairly accurate. I'm going for an average here. A couple of these are a little bit off because I used plywood at the time. I would recommend birch or something like that, a more of a heavy duty quality plywood, but at the time this was all that I had to use. And part of that is the way plywood's made. If you ever see how it's done, the core of the plywood is somewhat lesser material than what's on the top and bottom, so sometimes if you don't drill a pilot hole, the nail will wander slightly, which is what happened to this one. Yeah, what happened to that one, which that one throws this off and this off a little bit. Well, okay, that's the whole point of that. So have to be able to draft it out. Now, in order to be able to draw this out accurately, first you would cut the strip accurately, make sure there's no flanges, so I would in my case run it through the grinder to be able to have my strip that runs continuous all the way to the end. In order to be able to draft things out like this, you wind up having to get a ruler like this. I believe this is an Architect. And I get this because I think we're going to have to refocus on here. I'm in the United States, so this is inches. But rulers like this, Architect, also have, it's out of focus. It splits up. You're going to wind up having to be doing things like splitting a 1/2 inch, splitting a 1/16 of an inch, which is a 64th of an inch, and you have to be able to make a mark to be able to draw a line through it. And you get down below a 32nd of an inch, you wind up having to get a pen like this. Can you see that, how fine that is compared to a fat pen like this? Making the mark, getting right in the center of the mark is very crucial. Part of drafting, which I had in high school. Something you can work up to. So let's do this. We're gonna refocus a little bit. Trying to keep the time down on this video. let's back it up a little bit. Okay. I have to make a couple more of the gold stars. So, one of the things that folks ask about cutting a strip of glass, well, when you measure, I need 2 3/4 inches. Plus, you add a 1/16 of an inch for theoretically the head of the glass cutter, the edge of the head going to the center, which is your wheel. That's kind of how I learned how to cut strips. And then, bring it over here. You can see that. Okay, refocus. There's a little bit of a glare. No charge for the glare. We'll back this up a little bit because, let's see, I'm trying to do this with point of view, right? Hold it down so it doesn't move. Next cut. Next cut. Next cut. We're just gonna bump the camera. That was my belly. Make a couple of cuts just so you can see how that works. Yes? Apologize if it's out of focus. See how the lines line up? Let's get a little closer. So, when I break it out, and you'll notice on this particular board, I'm not going all the way to the edge. It's been my experience over the years when I'm trying to cut a point like this, if I get too close to the edge, it's going to want to break off. So I won't get a sharp point. So I'd rather lose the 1/4 of an inch or the 3/16 of an inch that I have on this board so I get a sharp cut, a sharp point. I'd rather get a sharp point than to be for my ego to get in the way and have to be right all the time. Hopefully you can kind of understand that. Remember, it's not the space between the pins, it's where the pins are at the apex of the triangles where they have to be driven into the board. If you want it accurate, use a drill press to drill a pilot hole. Some of y'all have hubbies that are woodworkers and they might be able to explain it to you in a lot better way. The next one that I had to make as a template, back this up a little bit, and oh, camera swing. You know, I kind of had to cobble this tripod together out of parts. So it's not a Bosch and Lomb tripod. This cuts the inside. This cuts the inside angle of the star. This is just a blank. That's all that board is for a blank. Now this I had to make, see, it's 2 layers of masonite. You can use, if you want to make something like this, you can use plexiglass. It's a little less than 1/8 of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch, or a little bit more. The reason for that being, it has to hold this, and again, you have to add from the edge of this to the line of your glass cutter. You see this? So that it comes out correctly based on my master pattern. See? Which is about right. You can see that. And that's all that this is for. And that's what I made it for. So it's two pieces. You have to get the inside, and you have to get the outside, then you have to get it to line up, which is not necessarily such an easy task. It sounds easier than it actually is. Let's back this up a little bit. Again, I'm cutting this and trying not to get my fat belly in the way. Now, when I'm cutting glass, this is my glass cutter cup. Okay. I use kerosene for cutting fluid. I have a little rag in the bottom. It actually has some coil of lead and a rag in the bottom, so I'll keep knocking it over. I just dip it in there. And this is the purpose of this board. It just cuts this end. See? You see that? And folks say, well, what do you do with the little pieces left over? Well, I save them in a box, and eventually somebody comes in that's doing mosaics and they want little pieces, and I'll fill a little box for them if I have them. See? See? Where it's holding it. I'm more concerned with the sharpness of the point and the angle. I'd rather lose a little bit of this glass and get an accurate inside angle than to get it so close, because this is a lot of labor involved to be able just to get to this point. Just to get to this point. To make this, to make that board that cuts the blanks out, to make this, and my battery is flashing on the camera, so this is pretty much it for this demonstration. Thank you, God bless, and have a good day. Bye-bye.